Thanks for watching the video. This is Pascal for EMP Reviews. This is a review of the film Inception, directed by Christopher Nolan. I chose this movie considering his much anticipated Oppenheimer film, set to be released this year. In addition to The Dark Knight, Tenet is my favorite film in his portfolio, and due to the fact that it was so poorly received, I decided to explore the Leonardo DiCaprio film instead, as the second Batman entry in the Nolan trilogy has been covered many times already by other documentaries. The review of Inception by Art and I will begin at the time posted here, after a condensed description of the events in the film. At the beginning of the story, an injured and disheveled Dominic Cobb regains consciousness at a beach while experiencing memories of his children. Armed guards drag him to a very old Saito, as he specifically requested to speak to this master of the nearby Japanese residence. The guards discover a weapon and a spinning top on his person. Saito asks Cobb if he was meant to be his assassin, recognizes the spinner, and remembers its owner from a long time before and his radical concepts. The scene blends into the present, where Dominic, in a much better state, and Arthur propose to a younger Saito their services. The education they propose is to train his subconscious to defend itself against anyone attempting to extract information from a deep location in his mind. But that can only happen if Saito makes himself completely vulnerable. In truth, the entire setting is inside Saito's mind as he is dreaming. In the real world, Cobb and Arthur have Saito unconscious and are physically connected to him by the passive device. They are aided by a dream architect, and their location is volatile as rioters are approaching. That instability shakes the entire Japanese location in the dream, a complication for the two men, which is made worse by Cobb's former wife's presence, Mal, against their actual goal, which is to steal secrets from Saito. Dominic tells Mal that he can't trust her anymore, and she asks if their kids miss her. She makes his infiltration of the temple's safe more difficult, but he manages to reach it as its contents hold the crucial information belonging to Saito. He is caught by Saito and Mal, who points a weapon at him. Cobb eventually lowers his weapon when she threatens to shoot Arthur. Saito reveals that he knows they are all asleep and demands to know who hired them to do this extraction against him. Mal shoots Arthur in the leg to torture him, since simply killing him would get him out of the dream, but Cobb does this job quickly when he gets an opportunity. The dream collapses, demonstrated by parts of the ceiling falling as Dominic finds a location to memorize the information he found under gunfire, leaving behind blank decoys for an infuriated Saito. The architect dumps Cobb in a bath in order to wake him, and the water presents itself in the dream everywhere, waking him and Saito, who reveals a gun. Cobb subdues Saito and orders him to reveal the redacted portion of the information he observed moments ago. Saito discloses that this entire exercise was a test that Dominic and his crew failed, and that he knew he was still dreaming due to a crucial failure by the architect. The rioters' assault initiate everyone to wake, which is actually due to the passives mechanism operated by another individual working for Cobb and Arthur. Arthur criticizes the architect and Dominic's mishandling of Mal, and Saito is awakened sometime later after the men leave the bullet train where the operation actually took place. Later, Cobb looks at his spinner until it falls over, gets a phone call from his children, and painfully tries to delay their desire to see him, as it is impossible at the moment. Their grandmother states that he will never come home, and the kids also ask for their mother Mal. Arthur again expresses his misgivings about Mal's involvement, but Cobb focuses on Cobalt Engineering, the corporation that hired them for their ultimately failed job against Saito, fearing their punishment. When they reach the helicopter they believe to be their means of escape, they find Saito with their architect who sold them out. Saito lets him go and swears retribution against Cobalt. Despite Arthur's reservations, Cobb agrees to do a job for the powerful businessman, that is Inception, the process of putting an idea in someone's mind without them being aware of the process. Dominic initially refused the mission, but only agreed after Saito promised to arrange his return back home to America to his kids. Saito is the head of the Proclus Global Corporation and needs Robert Fisher, son of soon-to-be deceased Maurice Fisher, to enact the failure of their business empire. This collapse would enable Proclus to take over their specific market. After this meeting, Cobb corrects Arthur's belief that Inception is not possible by saying that he's done it before, by going deep enough in someone's mind. He just does not reveal who this was accomplished with. In an effort to assemble a team for the project, Dominic goes to Paris to meet Miles, Mal's father, who initially taught him how to navigate people's minds. He acquaints him with one of his architecture students, Ariadne, as a possible replacement for the last engineer. At Miles's initial suggestion that Cobb create the Dream's architecture for the operation himself instead of a recruit, Cobb describes that Mal would interfere. Ariadne passes his first test by creating an unconventional design. Then, in a passive device-controlled dream, Dominic explains what her tasks are for the job he is proposing. She is to create environments where all participants will exist. Simultaneously, all involved will experience the world that she builds, while the targeted person will fill it with his subconscious. Ariadne wonders how she would be able to create enough detail to trick the individual into believing that what he experiences is real, and Cobb reassures her by describing that it is only after waking up that people realize that they were dreaming. In a very brutal fashion, Ariadne is reminded that this explanation is taking place in a dream, and that after awaking, this was her first experience in shared dreaming. 5 minutes here in the world is an hour while unconscious. Arthur explains that the passive device was once used by the military and that architects were employed to design the device. Another lesson demonstrates Ariadne's rapid ability to learn to change her and Cobb's environment. In dreams, Dominic explains, projected individuals are the target person's subconscious, and important information can be held by them or a secure location like a safe. Due to Ariadne's continuous rearranging of their environment, Cobb's subconscious entities begin to recognize her as an intruder. She ignores the warnings and continues to impress with more manipulation of the surroundings until the entities, which inherently cannot be controlled by Cobb, become physical, with Mal to finish the job. Before the attack, Cobb also warns to never use real-life areas when constructing locations, as doing so can lead to losing the ability to recognize dreams from reality. Ariadne awakes, fully stressed, curses Mal and Cobb. She is then told by Arthur to create her own totem, an object used to assure one that they are awake and not in someone else's dream. Ariadne instead declares that Cobb has too many unstable elements in his mind that she does not want to ever be vulnerable to. She then leaves. Assured that someone that gifted will return, Dominic instructs Arthur on Ariadne's next lessons and leaves for Kenya to meet Eames, another desired member of the team. Arthur reminds Cobb that Kenya is a central location to COBOL engineering. During drinks, Eames describes that in his previous attempt at Inception, the mission failed. He learned that for success, a very basic idea is needed as a plant. For the job against the Fisher-Morrow conglomerate, the tool to use is the unhealthy relationship between the father and son owners. Eames also suggests the employment of Yusuf, who could create a sedative formula ideal for their purpose. Eames spots COBOL pursuers, runs interference for Cobb, and Dominic barely escapes them and their gunfire. He ultimately is rescued by Saito, who was also following his movements. Ariadne returns, mesmerized by the endless possibilities of what she can create in dream environments, and then Arthur begins his part of the training, letting her know about more rules and which ones can be broken. The environment created must be large enough so that the team can hide from projections. Arthur theorizes that Cobb does not build environments for missions because he is afraid of Mal's possible interference, and then reveals that she is deceased and that any form of her experienced has been a projection. Eames and Dominic visit Yusuf. Cobb needs his specialties, as he requires the dream dive for this mission to be 3 levels, which is an additional plane in contrast to the extraction attempted at the beginning of the film. Saito orders to take part in the operation, and the group witnesses the effects of one of Yusuf's strongest serums, which even prevents a subject from waking, even with a slap to the face. The group samples a formula, and while under, Cobb is visited by Mal, wakes with a jolt as it appears a train was about to kill them both as they waited for it. Later, he is given detailed information about the Fishers and their company. Saito reveals that Proclus can no longer compete with Fisher-Morrow, which is set to control the energy supply for half of the world, which is why he wants to overtake their market through the Inception operation. Saito describes the father and son Fisher relationship as very tense, and through his connections, Eames gets access to Peter Browning, the junior Robert Fisher's godfather and uncle, who gains more power as the older Maurice gets sicker. Eames explains how he will use all the information he gathered on Peter while in the operation. Ariadne creates her own totem, and Cobb describes how that very concept and the spinning top itself were developed by Mal. In dreams, the spinner never stops rotating. Dominic refuses Ariadne's specifics of her environments due to the possibility that his projections could use that knowledge, especially Mal. Also, he explains that American authorities believe that he killed the real Mal. In the strategic meetings, Cobb explains that Robert's implanted ideas should yield positive emotions instead of anything negative. Yusuf creates his specific compound, and the 10 hours needed for the operation is translated into time while under. That is a week at the first level, 6 months at the second, and then 10 years. With the created sedative, an induced sensation of falling will get a participant out of a level into the higher one or to awake. However, the precision needed in the mission is to synchronize this maneuver in all levels at the same time. The time needed is located through Robert Fisher's flight to Los Angeles. Ariadne infiltrates one of Cobb's dreams, while he goes on a solo passive device dive. She finds Cobb with Mal in an intimate conversation, who is not happy with the intrusion. Dominic uses the device every night as it is the only way he can still dream, and it is the only way he can still be with Mal. He is also breaking one of his standard rules to never reenact memories. But this apparently is an effort to change several regrets that plague him. While his attention is focused on these disappointments, Ariadne separates herself from Cobb and explores the basement level, the floor Dominic stopped her from selecting moments earlier. She witnesses a train and then Mal in a trashed hotel room. The location is where she and Dominic used to go to for their wedding anniversaries. Mal describes a riddle involving a train, and Dominic walks in and rescues Ariadne from Mal's attempt at her. She reminds him that he promised that they would grow old together. This entire situation is a tool created by Cobb to contain Mal's projection, a means Ariadne is convinced will not work for much longer. Maurice is dead, and the funeral is also in Los Angeles. Architects do not go into dreams. They teach their environment to the dreamers, but Ariadne convinces Cobb to put her in the operation, considering the knowledge she just gained about his mindset. Once on a flight, Cobb covertly sedates Robert, and the team enter his mind through the passive device. Robert, not aware that he's dreaming, is kidnapped by Eames, Arthur, and Saito using a taxi they carjacked. This time, instead of Mal engaging in interference, a train plows its way through the downtown street, smacking against Cobb and Ariadne's car and several others. Soon, the taxi comes under gunfire by several men. During the gun battle, Saito is hit and everyone eventually meets at a safe house. Apparently, even with the thorough research on Fisher, Arthur did not discover that he had been trained against extraction. The armed men were defense projections, a fact rendering Cobb furious. He then quickly stops Eames from shooting Saito, which normally would jolt someone out of dreaming, but with the sedation Yusuf created with Dominic's specifications, dying in this particular state will result in an infinite subconscious. As Arthur describes it, they all could be stuck down there for an extremely long duration, which in the real world would manifest as brain damage. That limbo is apparently a subconscious place Cobb was in before, in his own previous extensive passive device-induced dreaming. Cobb describes that this risk was necessary to achieve the 3 layers required for Inception, and promised Yusuf his entire share to be received from Saito. His main goal, however, is to get back to his kids. Since the armed projections will eventually eradicate them all, the only choice is to go through with the mission. As kidnappers, Cobb and Arthur claim that Robert knows a combination to a personal safe in Maurice's office. After examining Robert's wallet, which he volunteered when initially kidnapped, Eames finds a photograph of a happy occasion between father and son. Eames takes the form of Robert's uncle Peter to pretend like he's being tortured for some time for those numbers. He also claims that Maurice declared that Robert would be the only person who could open that vault. Perhaps the sequence is based on some close event between father and son. An absurd idea, as Fisher describes cold words his father uttered at Robert's mother's death years before during his childhood. Saito still plans on preventing Cobb's arrest at their Los Angeles destination, but Dominic describes that his potential death here will result in an extremely prolonged stay in the subconscious limbo, which will probably eradicate any memory of the agreement and additionally his entire mind. Then Saito essentially describes the opening scene of the movie, when he is exceedingly old and meeting Cobb. Eames continues as Robert's uncle by claiming that inside the safe there contains a last will and testament with power to destroy the Fisher business empire and consequently Robert's inheritance. Fisher then describes his father's disappointment of him as his last sentiment before death, painting a picture worse than the group imagined as far as the level of dysfunction between the two men. In a private conversation with Cobb, Ariadne revisits the fact that Dominic has been in the infinite limbo subconscious before, and that a freight train in the form of Mal could potentially show up anytime, and that by going into lower levels in this entire dream, the team is going deeper into his mind, which might reveal some additional dangerous discoveries. Dominic describes that he and his wife went into so many layers deep into their dreams that they lost sight of what was real. They spent approximately an astonishing 50 years in that existence, and there they created their own world. Mal locked away her spinner in a resting state, representing a truth she was choosing to forget, and so, as a result, making the limbo they were in a reality. Only Cobb came out of that prolonged state stable, while Mal was convinced that she was still dreaming and wanted the both of them to kill themselves in order to awake. In her mind, their children were projections, and thus she rejected them. She eventually orchestrated an extensive scenario, even using legal means, to frame Cobb for supposedly murdering her. At the hotel, they routinely celebrated their anniversary. She described this entrapment to him and again referred to a train as a means to end the dream they were supposedly in, and then leapt off the ledge. Shortly after, Cobb left America to avoid authorities, leaving his children behind. Ariadne describes that he should not hold himself accountable for the false idea that resulted in her death, that he has to get past the guilt, and that he will undoubtedly have to confront Mal once again. As kidnappers, the team continues to pressure Robert, and then his armed projections started to close in. Eames and Arthur provide a strong response for the moment, providing an escape. To reach the mission's goals, Cobb strategizes to shift Robert's animosity that he has towards his father Maurice to one aimed at Peter Browning instead, as a means to repair things emotionally. Peter will be made to be someone conspiring against the Fishers. Yusuf will continue to drive to elude the projections, while the team reaches the second dream level. Set to a specific time, Yusuf will induce the needed sensation of falling to kick them out of their lower level. At the beginning of the mission in this level, Cobb introduces himself as an employee of Fisher Morrow, interrupting an apparent date between Robert and another disguise from Eames, during which he steals his wallet. He later again finds the photograph when meeting with Saito. Cobb then reveals his supposed true identity as a security officer, not only sent to recover Robert's belongings, but to be a barrier against anyone trying to extract information from him in his dreams. Arthur describes this previously used tactic as Mr. Charles, and it was designed by Cobb, which is aimed to turn the target dreamer against their own subconscious. The problem is it involves revealing to the target that they are dreaming, resulting in a lot of attraction towards the operating team. The last time this was attempted, the subject's subconscious tore Cobb and the rest of that team apart. Throughout the entire operation, Cobb has brief bouts where he loses control. He either sees his kids or short visions reminiscent of the painful night at the hotel. One of these events occurs when assisting Robert and also during his conversations with him, where in one exchange, he revealed that all of this is a dream. He kills what he describes to be projections of the people attempting the extraction, and then stops Robert from shooting himself, falsely believing that doing so would wake him up. Meanwhile, Yusuf's evading driving is sporadically vibrating the world in their second dream level. Cobb tells Robert to remember the details of the questioning he and Peter were subjected to. Meanwhile, with explosives, Arthur sets up what will result in a falling sensation to kick them all out of this level. Yusuf, on his level, will play music as a warning that his kick will soon be initiated. As Eames predicted, Robert's subconscious projects his uncle, and because of the impersonation Eames created earlier, in this dream, Peter orchestrated the kidnapping in an effort to obtain Maurice's destructive will. He reveals this when detained by Cobb's team. The will is actually a tool constructed by the group to suggest that Maurice did not see his son worthy enough to build something for himself after his passing. But Dominic claims that it is necessary to jump into his uncle's mind in order to find the truth, that this confession is a lie, as there is other information he is keeping. Though the team is actually going further into Fisher's subconscious, Cobb told Robert that it was his uncle's minds they were going into in order to make him part of the operation. Another brief loss of control by Cobb leads him to the third level, where the group is now some sort of covert military team with a mission to be accomplished in a snow environment. The supposed information authored by Maurice is located in a heavily guarded compound. In the first level, Yusuf continues to deal with projections, as does Arthur on his level. For the moment, both are successful. Eames then draws many of the projection forces away from the complex, while Yusuf starts his music signal and then initiates the kick by driving the van off a bridge. But it's too soon for the entire team. Arthur loses gravity in his level, while the rest of the team are hit with an avalanche. Saito takes Fisher through a hidden entrance into the complex, while Cobb eradicates a number of projections. Though the forces chasing Eames turn to go back towards the compound, he takes care of them. As soon as Robert enters the building's main area, Mal enters and Cobb loses control once more, confused as to whether she is real, giving her the opportunity to shoot Fisher, and then he shoots her. Eames finds Saito barely alive and Robert dead, meaning his mind was now in limbo. Ariadne suggests going there to find Fisher and provide him with a kick to get out of that level. Because Mal knows Cobb wants Fisher, she will have him captured. When waking up in the limbo level, Ariadne and Cobb are located in the enormous landscape Mal and Dominic created long ago. While at times seeing his children, Cobb describes that pieces of their memories were included in this environment. Eames arms Saito to protect Fisher's body while he deals with more projections. Arthur prepares to initiate a kick in a form that addresses the lack of gravity on that level, and Eames also arranges for his own kick, similarly with a set of explosives. Ariadne and Cobb find Mal, who tries to convince him to stay with her, that this entire experience is the real world, not a dream. Cobb then reveals that the very idea that made Mal believe that her waking state was still a dream was his doing. He implanted that concept into her mind, and thus this was how he knew Inception was a concept that worked. He underestimated how massive that idea would develop in her mind, resulting in her death. Feeling betrayed, Mal demands he make amends by staying in limbo with her. Saito finally dies, sending his soul into limbo. Eames uses a defibrillator on Robert, jolting the entire limbo level. Dominic, trades himself for Fisher and orders Ariadne to leave with him, as he has to stay to find Saito, who is surely dead by now. Cobb finally, painfully, declares and accepts that Mal is only a projection, no one real. She does not take this acknowledgement very well and is interrupted by Ariadne's gunfire, who then gives Fisher his own kick, bringing him back to Eames. The van is still falling and Fisher opens the compound safe to meet his father, who declares that the only disappointment he had with his son is that he actually attempted to be like him. The smaller safe actually held a pinwheel, a symbol of Maurice's love for his son, which is seen in the photograph. Maurice then passes away. The van hits the water and Eames sets off his explosives, causing a jolt in the entire limbo level. After ordering Dominic to maintain control of his mind while looking for Saito and then to awake, Ariadne gives herself a kick. Arthur's elevator, with everyone in it, hits a barrier at their location, providing a kick there. Everyone travels to upper levels while Cobb speaks to Mal one last time. He reminds her that he fulfilled his promise of growing old with her and that it was now time to let her go. And at this point, the Mal projection dies. Other than Cobb and Saito, the entire team climbs out of the van, now submerged underwater. Robert tells his uncle, still Eames in disguise, that his father and his will ultimately wanted him to be a separate individual, to be his own man. Cobb is then seen at the opening scene in the movie, where he meets a much older Saito. He reminds him that this entire existence is not real and their prior agreement. Back in the real world, the plane lands and Saito provides Cobb with a safe entrance into the country, as promised, where he finally meets Philippa and James. The final shot is of a continuously rotating spinner that never falls over. Okay, this is the review with Art and I. Thanks, Art, for coming over.
Thank you very much, Pascal. It's good to see you again. When was the last time we actually saw each other?
Your event.
Oh, my event. That was
yeah.
so it's almost a year ago in March. Yeah, you came by and you were a gracious guest at a premiere that I had for a movie that I made called The Cold Farewell.
What's the latest with the movie?
Well, it won a bunch of awards. Best Animation from Cinemagic Film Festival of 2022. The Los Angeles Independent Film Festival called it Best Animated Feature. Best Screenplay from Cinemagic Film Fest.
Jesus.
Best Film Noir from Los Angeles Film Award. Best Original Musical Score for Los Angeles Independent Film Festival. But did you do Tenet yet?
I mentioned this at the beginning of this video. I want to do it, but people hated it.
Oh my God!
I mean, if you want to do it, that'd be great, man. Because it's just that it just did not get well received. The audio is a problem.
Right. Do you think that he does? He's a filmmaker that I think he literally plays with his audience. He says, "Okay, I want you to not hear what that guy says. I want you to go back and watch it again in order for you to get what I was trying to get. What I was trying to get you to see the first time around."
There's a very crucial conversation between the actor Taylor. I forgot what his name is, but he's one of the James Bond contender in Tenet. Between him and the protagonist, which is Denzel Washington's son.
Yeah.
They're speaking with a gas mask on.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
and it's muffled words, right? Exactly.
I gotta turn on the subtitles.
The subtitles.
Okay, so actually, just as in Dune, Ken Watanabe, whom I have the utmost respect for,
sure,
has an accent.
He does.
And there were times when I turned on the subtitles when he was explaining his motivations for wanting the Inception operation, because he wants to destroy Fisher Morrow. So I couldn't understand some of the stuff he was saying there. I couldn't understand some of the things he was saying at the very beginning of the movie where he's like 90 years old or whatever. And
Exactly.
It's like, I'm sorry, I can't understand it. And it's absolutely even more of a dire problem with Dune, because Dune is an insanely complex movie. So you need to have to understand everything. And I don't have the name of the Asian actor
He
doctor.
played Dr. Yui, right?
Yes,
Exactly.
You can't understand some of this stuff. And he is pivotal as to not only did they downplay his part, which was much better done in the 1984 movie.
Absolutely.
They not only did they downplay that, his entrance into the room to turn off the shield, you don't
really see him.
like Mario, like they showed these big structures coming down, which is supposed to signify the shield going down. And when I showed that to Mario when we were doing a review, he was like, I don't know what happened here.
Exactly,
you
right.
know? So you don't know, you just see 3 guards standing in front of the control room fall down because the same mechanism he used to incapacitate the
Duke and his family.
He used that on the guard. So you see 3 guys fall down, and then you don't see him walk into the control room. You just see these 3 structures going down, and the Harkonnens coming in.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar with the material,
Yeah, and you know,
but the point is his accent.
And it is a very hard decision for a director, or even to the extent of the production, having to make decisions where they say, "Wow, should we just get on with the story, or should we should make his character a little bit more complex and explain certain things and do better shots and do this in order for the audience to get that." But if they do decide to do something like that, it adds another half hour to the movie. It adds another $500,000 to the budget.
Okay, so my first problem was at the beginning of the movie, Saito is like 90 years old. Why is Cobb not 90 years old?
Exactly.
And why is Cobb, like, he looks like he's been assaulted?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Obviously, the movie opens up in what they call limbo.
Yeah.
And it's explained later on in the movie that limbo is an area in the dream sharing process in which essentially when they are in a state of not being able to tell reality from the dream that they are sharing, that they are living.
Yeah.
And as a result, they can spend decades, years, an entire lifetime there, trapped without an ability to wake up.
Yeah.
Which is amazing, because the concept is that your body, your actual physical real body, has been asleep for the last 4 hours.
Yeah.
But you have been living an entire lifetime in limbo.
Yeah,
which is why Saito is an old man, and because it's been explained also that the Cobb character of Leonardo DiCaprio has been in limbo before. He obviously knows how to distinguish.
Okay.
So he's not an old man, but he knows that he knows who he's looking for. He knows that he's only got so much time to look for him, and maybe he did spend a few years, but maybe he was smart enough to find him, which is why he had to stay behind and find him, because he knew how to find him.
Yeah, I guess
so Saito, is good. Yeah,
I mean,
he
I
just
guess it
lived a
could
long
be
life.
like a fan theory of mine, which is that just like many things in real life, some people have a stronger capacity or whatever.
Exactly.
You know, so because Mal lost it down there, and Saito was kind of he did recognize Cobb barely, so he's probably a little more resilient than Mal was, and Cobb is I guess very strong in that respect. So I guess that's it though. He didn't age, but he did get rugged.
Exactly.
I guess that's it. You know, as impressive as the makeup was, they should have just gotten somebody else.
Yes.
You know, it worked with Michael Caine in Interstellar, because I believe when he was about to die, the look on his physical look looked older. That was very apparent. But I used this in, I think it was Man of Steel, but they had a younger version of I want to say Newt, but I forgot
Jessica Chastain's character. Jessica Chastain's character was a younger girl played by a younger actress, and then there was like a leap forward, and she was played by the actress.
Bernstein, yeah.
Right, exactly.
Bernstein.
Oh yeah, that's right, Ellen Bernstein.
They should have gotten an older guy and stuff, you know. But because that makeup, it's like, I look at that and I start thinking about Guy Pearce in Prometheus. It's like, okay, this is garbage.
There's here's the thing about Christopher Nolan that I've always noticed is that he really seems to be aware that he's not putting the movie properly together. Like, I know that he like when we were discussing the fact about the sound that you can't understand that because they have mask over their heads, it's muffled. So it's like, but he's the type of filmmaker that says, well, that's how it would sound if he had a mask over his head. You have to put the movie back. You have to rewind it. You have to watch it again. You have to watch it with your friends. You have to discuss it with your friends. And then finally, after it gnaws you that, like, I couldn't understand what they were saying behind the mask, you finally realize, shit, he got me. That was the other thing about the movies that he makes. He literally has become such a visual director that he shows you something that you say to yourself, wow, I love the fact that I came to the movie and fell in love with what I just saw on screen. Yeah. He did that with definitely Inception. Remember when the city was folding over on itself? It became part of, I mean, seriously, I remember having a dream where something like that happened in my dream, where I actually saw the sky fold upon itself. I'll tell you that story later. Okay. But the point of the matter is that when I saw that in it being visualized in a movie like Inception, I go, oh, I've got to see this. There was the hook. He hooked me. Yeah. He does that with a bunch of movies, and he did it with Interstellar. Because when you saw that giant black hole, when you saw Gargantuan, when you saw the black hole Gargantuan, I think that's what they named it, you swear you could not stop staring at it. It's mesmerizing. You suddenly realize, I'm looking at something I have not seen in a movie.
Well, that and the Tesseract scene,
that's true.
That's incredible. And then
in Tenet, when they went in reverse, I loved them when they were in reverse. Right? Yeah, that was it's like wow. Okay, so now my confusion was that to me it would have seemed like, to me, if it would make sense to me anyway, like she would have locked away a spinning spinner, and then Cobb came in there and toppled it over, and then closed the door because to me that means that because like one guy because I went to a few sites and stuff, one guy theorized that she would check on that safe at a later time. She just did not lock it away, and that's it. She actually went back in there. So what this guy said was that she would go in there and open it and see it differently than she left it, which confused her. That's so. In my mind, it would have made sense if he toppled over a spinner that she spun, so that when she opens it, she thinks that she's in the real. I'm confusing myself. Right, exactly, because you see the totem spins all the time, and it never topples over if you're in a dream. Right. Yeah. If you're in reality, well, then it will actually stop spinning, and it would just fall over, meaning that you are in the real world if it falls over. I saw her putting away the totem in her dream when she's in the dream
in a resting state.
Right, exactly. Okay. And she left it there because she didn't want anymore to see whether she was living in the real world or in the dream world. Okay. She wanted to just surrender and remain in the world, remain in the dream world. And it was her husband, it was Leo DiCaprio, who was telling her, we have to leave. Yeah. And it's like, we have to go back to our children. And she's like saying, no, our children are here. Look, you can even turn around and see them. I see them all the time. And he's like saying no, because he knows that they are not his real children.
So I think it makes sense now, in the sense that if she were to open up the safe, and this is theorizing because you don't see her do this.
Right.
So she will go to the safe, open it, and see it spinning forever. So if she sees that she's dreaming, and then she realizes that she has to leave.
Exactly.
If that's what he did, then that makes sense.
Right. Okay. Now she just became so obsessed with living in this dream world, which who wouldn't? Yeah. It would be fantastic if he did that. That remember that the reason why the whole concept of Inception actually works is because Cobb says, I know it works because I used it on my wife. Yeah. I did an inception in her, and I got her to believe that if she dies in this dream, we could finally wake up and go into reality. Yeah. But unfortunately, she was too far gone by then. Yeah. And she just was like, dreaming. And so yes, exactly. Which is, it's kind of weird, but when the movie actually starts and a few things get explained to you, you realize that the whole purpose of them going into the dream world is for them to steal oil. It's
Secrets from
corporate espionage, right?
Yeah.
Which essentially makes the whole thing a MacGuffin. It's like the Russian, and it's like the rest of the movie is really about a bunch of people who are using this technology to figure some stuff about themselves and to get back into the country and to do a heist.
It's a heist, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's kind of like a weird. It's a caper movie. It's Ocean's 11, but in the science fiction realm. And not only that, but it's also done in such a Cronenberg universe kind of way that I'm actually impressed because they just say that the technology works.
Yeah.
That the technology, that the dream sharing was actually developed for the military so that soldiers can shoot and stab each other and then wake up and not have really killed and shoot each other.
Yeah.
But then it got to the corporate world and people have been using it and abusing it.
Well, you know what it is? It's kind of like it's the intelligent version of what was that movie with the magicians with oh God, what's the guy from the movie Seven?
Okay, are you talking about the movie Bullet Train?
No. Who's the older?
Wait. Yes, Morgan Freeman. You're thinking about a movie called Now You See Me.
Yeah,
and then there was the sequel was Now You See Me, Now You
Part
Don't.
two.
Like that, whatever it was.
It's like Inception's the intelligent version of that.
By the way, that movie is horrible. Both of those movies. Oh my god! But I love the fact that they spent so much money on that.
Yeah.
The money was all over the screen.
Oh. Okay, so Dominic, Cobb, and Arthur go to the helicopter. Saito is there with Nash.
Right, exactly.
So Saito says the guy sold you out.
Exactly.
Now, did they catch him, or did he surrender himself to Oculus? And if he did, why the hell would he do that?
He literally sold him out. He says, he probably sold him out because he needed more money. You can tell just by the way that the Nash character, played by, I think his name is Lucas Haas.
Okay.
I think that's his name. Anyways, he obviously was doing the work with Cobb and Arthur, and he was doing it either for desperate reasons or because he needed the money. And he probably decided to give up Cobb and Arthur to Saito so that he can get more money out of this thing. So look, these are the guys that did this to you, not me, okay? Look, they hired me, but I'm in a desperate way. And he basically says, okay, just tell me where they are, which is why he is able to find them. Saito is able to locate where Arthur and Cobb is.
You know this is your theory? Or?
No, because then what happens next is that he knocks on the door, then the door opens, and then his henchman grabs the Nash character and takes him away.
Yeah.
And Cobb asks Saito, are you going to kill him, or what are you going to do with him? And he says, nothing. He says, nothing. He says, but I can't really say the same for Cobalt Engineering, which is another way of saying that, look, this guy's a bad guy. He tried to steal from me. Yeah. So I'm going to give him to some guys who obviously are going to kill him because they didn't get to steal what he wanted to steal from me. Okay. So I'm throwing him to the wolves. But you guys, this was an audition. You guys came so close that you guys are the ones that I now need to do this job, which is another way of basically saying we try to fuck over the villain, and now the villain is going to make us work for him.
Well, there's 2 points there. Okay, for one thing, oh god, this slipped my mind. But okay, so he says I can't say the same for Cobalt Engineering, which means he's going to retaliate against them. Okay, so the other point just came to mind. Thank God. Okay, so he says I'm going to ravage Cobalt Engineering. So now, if that's if he means that, then why was Cobb followed by Cobalt when he went to Kenya? Because if Saito was as kept his word, but if he was motivated to ravage them, they would not lay a finger on Dominic. I guess maybe he didn't get his stuff in order yet because he followed Cobb to Kenya. Right. And then two, I guess this is canon. In one of the site that I go to, which is phenomenal, by the way, by giving me an insane amount of information on Evangelion. Mm-hmm. They also cover Inception, and apparently Cobalt kidnapped another someone under Saito called Kaneda, and they were holding him against Dominic to get him to do stuff. They wanted the information they wanted from Saito. They thought Kaneda had it, and once they found out that he didn't, they hired Cobb and his team to go after Saito to get it.
Oh, I see.
So that's like, I don't know if it's in the script.
Well, actually, no. But I think I know exactly where it came from. I think when I went to a Comic-Con once, I saw this comic book that was a graphic novel that was like supposed to be like the story before the events that occurred in Inception.
Oh, no kidding.
Right, and I think it was something along the lines of what you just described, where it sort of set up the reason why we open with them inside Saito's consciousness.
Okay.
Remember, because they find themselves in a
that's how it's
right. It's like it's a wonderful palace, and remember, here's the other thing that I wanted to mention about this movie. This was Christopher Nolan's way of filming a James Bond movie.
Oh yeah, he said that he's influenced by it because like when they're into the snow,
right, exactly,
the level, it's like
Her Majesty's Secret Service, right? Yeah. And it's kind of weird because even the music gets to that point where it's James Bond. The movie does a lot of flipping around. It becomes this, then it becomes this, and then it becomes this. Yeah. Even down to the point where if you look at the technology, which they really don't show it that often, you just see a briefcase, you see them taking a tube, they put it in their arms, but you don't see if they insert a needle in the arm. You don't see what they do. You sort of, and then they press this like rubber button. It looks like so David Cronenberg.
It's simplistic.
It very to the point where it's like it's complicated. It does amazing things, but holy cow, it looks like something you could take to the bus.
It's what it is. Movies like this take shortcuts the way I see it because they simplify the complexity of going into somebody's mind. I just watched Brainstorm, and that was slightly more believable because of the size of the helmet that had.
Right, exactly.
But like in Strange Days, they just put that thing on down the head.
Right, and it's kind of a weird thing because, like you said, when you see the movie Brainstorming, you see them working with this huge equipment, and then they say we finally have a processor, and that's where the science fiction angle comes on, and then they make the thing look like headphones. Which is like as scientifically like design leap that in the 1980s was like wow, it's cool. But then when they make a movie like Strange Days, where they literally put like you have to insert a disc into a little machine and then wear these headphones, it's like okay, that's sort of like a leap back, but production design wise, I believe it.
Okay. Well, like in Brainstorm, he did it over the phone.
I remember.
Because I just watched that I think last weekend. Unfortunately, it doesn't hold up well.
No, it doesn't. But it's still. It's kind of like this cute angle on what was possible back then because they decided to like do the science fiction what if kind of thing, and for them, virtual reality was literally going to be something that we were going to live with. We haven't lived with it yet, but eventually, I think we will. Sooner or later, virtual reality is really going to come along, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to get to the point where the next time somebody decides to watch the movie Inception, they are going to be background in a virtual reality version of the movie.
Okay.
Like let's say that you are actually going to be under the rain watching the chase as it happens before.
Oh yeah. It's kind of a Matrix thing, but I as far as that, I'm not sure this is correct, and I may have to look this up or cut it out. I'm totally wrong, but I think decades ago they did have a device implemented connected to somebody's brain.
Oh my gosh.
And the guy pressed a letter on the keyboard and the guy was like, you pressed the letter R. I think though that stuff is damaging to the mind though. I think it causes damage if you do it over again, which is actually like goes right into science fiction,
Everything goes into science fiction.
If you use something like that too much, it'll damage it, One of the cool things about going through step by step with Man of Steel is like things that I should have caught that I only caught because I did the review. Like Mario started laughing because when Lois Lane was in the Kryptonian ship, that was the villain's name.
Zod.
Zod and his crew had. So they throw her in a compartment, and there's conveniently. There's a Kryptonian USB thing there,
right?
And Superman gave her the USB thing, and I'm like, that's convenient and stuff like that. But I didn't catch that at the beginning. Now, And that's very important because that's the way his father was able to come in and rearrange the ships and atmosphere, whatever. So now, I didn't catch that in the photograph that Robert always kept in his wallet. There's his father, and his father. There's him, and he's holding a pinwheel.
He's holding a pinwheel. I never saw that.
Yeah, and that's why it was in a safe at the end. You know, that is so pivotal, and it's like, you know, I'm sorry, but if I'm making a movie and it's audacious for me to criticize Christopher Nolan in this respect, but I did not catch that pinwheel until I saw the movie 4 times.
Right, exactly.
In the photograph, you know. So, and it's very important for the end, for the resolution between his father and son, you know.
But you know what? I also wonder, once again, if this was Christopher Nolan's way of fucking with his audience. And you know why? Because seriously, when he shows the photographs, and he shows it three times. He shows it when it falls from the nightstand of the father, and the glass breaks. And they kind of like pass it around, and he says, "This must have been a cherished moment for you." And he says, "Nah, he doesn't even know that I put it beside him." And you see the picture, but you don't see him holding the pinwheel. You don't see it because you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
In fact, the detail is very fleeting. The same thing when they look through his wallet and they find the same same photo. Right, exactly.
The first level of dreaming. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And they look at it, and then once again it shows up again, and I can't remember where it shows up again, but you see it, and once again, when we see the pinwheel, like you just said in the conclusion of the movie, and you suddenly say, wait a second, there was a pinwheel the whole time and I think it's because Christopher Nolan is saying, yeah, in dreams there is something in a dream that you never pay attention to, but that is the key to your subconscious.
Yes.
It's how a psychiatrist like hypnotizes you. You go through your dream state and you say, "Oh, I was in this room and I see red and I see that," and goes, "And what is behind you?" And then all behind you the entire time was your father, and so the key is your father. And it's like, well, the pinwheel with the key, but because it was presented in a dreamlike state all the time, what you actually saw was like, yeah, you see, that was the key all the time, but you missed it because it's about somebody's subconscious, and when it comes to subconsciousness, you have to figure it out at the last moment.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is, man. It's so complicated.
Very complicated. But you know, I'm actually glad that you mentioned the pinwheel, because when I saw the movie again, I suddenly realized, in the way that I recalled it, it was just the same photograph.
Okay.
But no, the pinwheel was like one there, and I go, oh yeah, the pinwheel. Yeah. I completely forgot about it, dude.
Yeah. So it took me a while to catch that. Yeah, you know, because the photograph is small too. It's not like a close up or nothing.
You know, the details are very fleeting. They really are. Well, once again, Nolan messing with us, I think.
Yeah,
but he's smiling the whole time, though.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a bit of a problem with the casting of Joseph Gordon-Levitt, because I thought he was wooden in there. I mean, it's weird to me when a guy like Christopher Nolan allows that, because like in Dune, Javier Bardem and Zendaya's performance is wooden, very wooden. Okay. So I don't know. I thought Levitt was especially because like when he tells Ariadne that Mal is only a projection and she's dead, it's like, dude, you know. Get a little motivated there a little bit.
Yeah. Also, I also feel like he Joseph Gordon-Levitt, the character that he plays, Arthur, is actually smarter, more intelligent, and more of a leader than I think the Cobb character is.
Okay.
Cobb, unfortunately, is a guy that's he's really unraveling, and Arthur sees it, and he constantly says, "Hey, look, come on, we're here to work."
Yeah.
You know, hey, is she going to be a problem? Like, he literally is like the guy in the band that is better than the lead singer. Well, because he's trying to tell the lead singer, "Hey, get it together, man. We got a show to play tonight."
I think it was Alternative Press. They said that if you want to know what's happening in a band, you have to talk to the drummer.
Wow, amazing you would say that. But you know, here I'm going to ask you a question. Would you have been more satisfied if Joseph Gordon-Levitt had played Cobb instead of Leo?
No, my God, no. So you need somebody who's intense.
So do you think that he was just not the right actor, or he was too young, or he was too smug? What was he exactly?
No, I don't think. I think what it is because there's an army of people on YouTube who claim that Brie Larson was catastrophic as Captain Marvel, and that's another video, but she's an award winner.
Sure.
That means that the director who worked with her with the other movie, you hear like Michael Bay of all people, but you hear directors who ask the actors to do a scene 30 times.
Yeah.
And those are the guys who like squeeze a good performance out of directors, and I'm surprised that was allowed to happen with Gordon Levitt, because he does not give a good performance in my view.
Well, it's kind of weird because did you notice that Christopher Nolan, the way he looks, and then the way that that Leonardo DiCaprio's character of Cobb looked in the movie, it's literally, he looks like the director. They look alike. And it's almost to the point where I was thinking, wow, if this was Christopher Nolan's way of saying, I've always imagined me in this role, I've always imagined me being an actor and playing this part, then he picked an actor, Leonardo DiCaprio, to literally match what he has always imagined in his head.
I believe those accusations with Kathleen Kennedy, with like Rogue One and Star Wars. And with, I don't know who the name of the TV person is at Amazon, but they're accusing that with the woman from Rings of Power. Because that woman in Rings of Power looks like that executives. She does not look like Kate Blanchett.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. But in here, no, I don't see that.
Really? It was one of those things where I just thought that Christopher Nolan casted an actor that looked like him, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do have to say that I think that Ellen Page is actually miscast in this flick.
I liked her a lot.
Really?
What was your problem with her?
The thing is that she just, and now this is the thing, because she has to compete as the only other female actress in this film with the character that is played by the actress Maillard. I forget what her name is, but she played Maul.
Marion Cotillard.
Right, there you go.
I'm in love with that woman.
She's beautiful, right? Exactly. Now, the irony is that both of the actresses that they chose for these roles are not glamorous, which is fine. I love the fact that they're not glamorous.
I disagree, because Marion and Cotillard, I disagree, because for one thing, I do find her insanely attractive, and two, she speaks French. So,
but you know what? Here's the thing: they looked insanely. They didn't look, in my opinion, they were not glamorous, but yet they dressed glamorous.
Yes.
And they looked like they were not comfortable in what they were wearing.
You think so?
Well, the only reason why I thought that was because when I watched the movie, I just realized that there is such a...
Something missing?
Well, no. Ellen Page is a really small person.
Yes. Yeah, very.
Jason Gordon-Levitt is actually a very thin guy. Cobb is a very straight guy, and then the Thomas Harding character, Ames, he's very beefy.
Yeah, he's.
It's kind of like it's a mixture where it's very attractive people, and then it's like they make them look good. They look like a Revlon commercial, and I understand that it was as if they're trying so hard to make them look glamorous. Okay, fine, but it bothers me because they are just too good looking.
Okay.
And when it came to the actresses, my beef with them is that they were just made to look glamorous, but yet they really were not glamorous people. That's what I got out of that.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I find Cotillard very attractive and stuff, and I thought Ellen Page was kind of, I guess, perfect, but yes, she does look very small in stature and stuff like that.
And what did you think of Leonardo DiCaprio?
In this movie?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, just very extremely emotional.
A perfect vehicle for him. I think that if this movie would have been made, courageously, if it would have been made 20 years ago, they would have chosen a guy like, I think, John Travolta to play the part, or maybe somebody like Matt Dillon. I don't know. I'm getting to the point where if you have to reimagine this movie back in the day, I certainly would not have cast it like, let's say, Gene Hackman, but I definitely would have picked somebody like Robert De Niro if he was up for it.
Yeah,
because it would have been great to see it, but he probably would have been the wrong actor.
Okay, this is movie stuff where, of course, there's a barrage of bullets in the first scene when they get fired at, and only Saito gets hit.
Right, exactly.
And then the other thing is, when they were trying to kill Yusuf, It didn't seem, because the guy like basically handed him his gun practically, and then of course Eames was granted he had to go hand to hand with the guy after he gave Saito the gun, and he goes, "I'm gonna have to go fight these guys. You just maintain the door, the little doorway." But he was the only one. Like, oh yeah, like when because okay, so he fires the flare gun.
Mm-hmm.
And then that gets the guys to come out of the compound and chase him, and he wipes them all out.
Exactly.
It's just like very convenient.
And not only that, but I mean, it's amazing. But Christopher Nolan, when he must have written this script, he must have like known that there had to be so much logic that had to be thrown out the window.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the same time, it's like, well, how else am I going to get the story to keep going? And I understand that, but it gets to the point where, yeah, you distinctly see them shooting straight into the van, and none of the people inside the van get shot. Yeah, it's like, look, you cannot keep bullets from going through a van. You cannot. It's not protection.
it's plot convenience, and I guess. On one level, it's like the Matrix in the sense that it's meant to be like a facsimile of real Earth,
sure,
but it isn't.
Yeah,
and then you add plot convenience to that, then I guess you're free after that. Thanks for watching the video. This is the end of part 1. Part 2 will be released soon.